Work. I'm Michael Bryant. We're still waiting on a verdict on that case out of Colorado. They've been at it since yesterday when they began, back at it again this morning. This is the case against Jeremy Cooper and Peter Cichuniec. These are the two paramedics charged with manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, and second-degree assault for their roles in the death of the 2019 23-year-old killed in 2019, Elijah McClain. So, obviously, the last thing they heard were the closing arguments. I want to mention something, too. I just did a little note on the excited delirium we've talked about. That's been stricken from any Colorado law enforcement diagnosis or training documents. That doesn't exist anymore there. Wonder why? Seems to be a problem. Anyway, closing arguments late Wednesday afternoon. So let's start there. This is Shannon Stevenson with the prosecution.
And we've heard some excuses about this, too. Well, it's really hard to estimate somebody's weight. These guys didn't even try. They were going to give 500. They didn't care how much he weighed. All the things you could have done to check on somebody's weight, ask them, ask other people what they thought they weighed, check in with your partner. They didn't do any of that. They went straight to 500. We also heard that they had to give 500 because you couldn't give less than that with the syringe that they had. This is another one where you just have to use your common sense. Of course, they could have given a lower dose. Of course, they could have given the right dose. And then another thing that I expect you'll hear, well, they thought ketamine was safe. But again, your common sense will tell you that if you are told to give a weight-based dose for a controlled substance that's kept under lock and key, you don't just decide to give more. And the safety margin that you heard Dr. Hill talking about yesterday, generally ketamine is safe. And what did he say? He said it's safe in that 3 to 5 milligram per kilogram range. And he said, I've even heard sometimes where they're allowed to give 6 milligrams per kilogram. But remember how much Elijah got, 7.7 milligrams per kilogram, outside of even Dr. Hill's wide safety margin. And the defendants knew the risks of giving an overdose of ketamine. This was what they were taught. Respiratory drives should be preserved with appropriate dosing, but large doses increase the likelihood of adverse effects, and specifically respiratory depression.
2023, the year of ketamine, and not in a good way. Catherine Lizardo's here, Jeffrey Wolf. Catherine, we've heard about the drug so much now. We know it was a horse tranquilizer originally, and then it became a sedative, and it became a drug called Special K on the street. Now we're hearing so much about it with the Maya Kowalski case, with this, even with Matthew Perry's recent death in his hot tub. What do you think the jury's reaction is just to learning so much more about this use or misuse of ketamine?
Well, now we don't. Well, I don't know if the jury were asked about prior news regarding ketamine, if they've heard of that. I'm sure they were asked about that too. But ketamine being in the media much more now, they're learning so much about it and how dangerous it is. But I like this prosecutor saying that it's just common sense. Even if you don't know what ketamine is, but you know it's a controlled substance and it's a weight-based, then you should use your common sense in terms of making sure that before you inject someone with that you have all the information you need because of how dangerous it is. We've seen this excited delirium being administered, the ketamine being administered for the excited delirium, and you mentioned that excited delirium is no longer in the policies and procedures of the police department. Ketamine use also, is my understanding, have been eliminated as a use during that type of incidents as well.
Yeah, it used to be kind of a catch-all. They would just throw that out there as some reason to justify whatever action they took. Okay, prosecution's done. We'll take a break. Defense coming up. What are they going to have to say in defense of these two paramedics? We'll be back.
And the witnesses who were right there that night, they all confirm Elijah was left there prone, face down, unable to protect his airway after he got that injection, unable to clear the vomit from his lungs, unable to get the oxygen that he needed. Lisa Gonzalez confirmed the same thing. Did you see Mr. Cooper, Mr. Cichuniec approach the patient and address the fact that he was prone on the grass? No, All of this in direct contradiction of their training. They know not to leave people prone when they're sedated. And what was the risk of that? The risk of leaving him in that position? Can't protect his airway, can't get oxygen, can't clear his lungs. And what do they decide to do next? To ignore Elijah while he's dying. At this point, there is still a chance to save Elijah, but time is running out fast. You can hear how people, various witnesses, described how he looked at that time. Dr. Sina said, I'd call it agonal breathing, kind of breathing you do right before you die. Dr. Mitchell said, we know he is at risk of dying at this point. Dr. Buther said, we see him not breathing well at all and completely unresponsive. Elisa Gonzalez answered, was the patient doing anything, any movement? No. And even Dr. Sundaram said he goes flaccid completely. Where are the defendants? They aren't even paying attention. And that vomit is pouring out of Elijah's face. They're off, not even looking. And then he takes those two terrible breaths. And where are the defendants? Oh, there's Mr. Cooper. And there's Mr. Cichuniec typing on his tablet, completely ignoring their patient.
Okay, so more prosecution there. Catherine Lizardo is here. Jeffrey Wolf. Jeff, this is your backyard. As you describe it, they love you there in Aurora. Let me ask a bigger question. We talk about this all the time when cops are involved in trials for their actions. What about the EMTs? Is this going to chill those who even think about getting into this paramedic profession, fearing they might be sitting there at the defense table someday?
I read an article about that just last week when this trial started, and they were talking about, what is this going to do to EMTs moving forward? And you know what? I hope it chills them. I hope it takes anybody who would consider taking orders from cops and being part of the prosecution of a person being beaten up by police officers on the side of the road. I hope it gets them into a different profession. I hope it chills them from doing things that are against what is the medical necessity of their patient. I hope it chills them from laughing while somebody dies on the ground and on the gurney. I hope it does, quite frankly. People that are afraid of that, I'm tired of hearing it. This was unacceptable behavior by people that should be out there to protect and save lives, not out there to help effectuate an arrest in a brutal fashion. I hope it does. Okay,
so I got to press you. Yes or no? You're going to lose good people, too, as a result, don't you think?
I don't care. What do you think about that? I don't care.
Know,
if we lose people who don't want to go into this profession because they're afraid that they're going to be prosecuted if they make deadly mistakes, good. Get out of here. If you're committed to doing this job well and doing it in the best interest of your patients, come and join up and save some lives. If you're worried that if you make a deadly mistake, you're going to be held accountable for that, go find something else to do.
Okay, let's take a break here. We'll come back again. We are in verdict watch in this Colorado case. We'll be right back.